The most common criticism of Dark Moon is its segmented level structure compared to the semi-open worldness of the original. While I unfortunately haven't played said game, I have played the third installment twice. And I find it odd that the same criticism wasn't levied at Luigi's Mansion 3, which has an even wilder and mismatched tone than Dark Moon. I mean, people are up in arms about a frozen mine when 3 has a medieval floor, an ancient Egyptian floor, and a nightclub floor. The series has taken on this wacky tone in its levels to match the wackiness of its concept. I mean, it's a slapstick idea to have the scaredy cat be the ghost hunter. That's why Scooby-Doo has lasted so long, and Luigi's Mansion is a direct emulation of Scooby-Doo. With how varied Scooby-Doo has become with all of his absurd crossovers, it makes sense for Luigi's Mansion to head in that same direction. Not with crossovers, of course. Nintendo is more stubborn with its IP than it is for reasonably pricing its remasters, but to build up the franchise's momentum, Luigi's Mansion has to get wackier with every installment. Nintendo is never happy with just putting out another game. They always need to go further or reinvent themselves. With only 3 installments in 2 decades, Luigi's Mansion is nowhere near stale, but they still can't just put out another one with a new set of levels. I fully expect Luigi's Mansion 4 to be even wilder and silly than 3. So if Luigi's Mansion had just stayed as one mansion, it would have been strange for us to walk into another room suddenly, and then the entire level biome would have changed. It was undoubtedly baffling in the treacherous mansion when the level's atmosphere switched as soon as we entered a new room. Luigi's Mansion 3 had to switch to a hotel setting in order to ground the ludicrous art style shifts in some sense of reality. This didn't really help alleviate the mismatched tone, but I can see how putting that barrier in place would help to justify the constant switches. But then I ask you, viewer, what exactly is the difference between the multiple mansions in Luigi's Mansion 2 and the multiple floors in Luigi's Mansion 3? Both are wild shifts in art style that are separated by a loading screen, so mechanically there's no difference between them at all. If Luigi's Mansion 4 were to return to the one mansion style like in the original game, then it would become sort of like a Metroidvania with how large and winding the mansion would have to become. All sense of reality would be shattered when we walk from a snow level to a desert level in the space of a screen. The only way I can see this working is if they mess around with dimensions like what happens at the end of Dark Moon, and the mansion itself is in some kind of dimensional crisis where the different wings of the house all go into alternate themed worlds. Then you have at least justified the wackiness. To be clear, I don't have a problem with the game being silly or having unexplained things. That's the nature of being a paranormal game. However, I would like it if there was some kind of encompassing theme to all the madness. But another thing more annoying than switching to mansions across the game was how you got booted out of a level once an objective was complete, and that this was interrupting the flow of gameplay to continue a storyline that players didn't care about. But here's something I think a lot of people are missing. People are only focused on the narrative reason for getting expelled from levels, but Nintendo is only ever focused on mechanics, and they overlook the mechanical reason for why you get booted out. The reason is simple, that it's a fast travel. See, the level design of the mansions in Dark Moon often involve a winding linear path that leads to a key that you need to progress the level. It would be a massive pain if once you got to the end of that path, you had to walk back across it to continue. So Nintendo boots you out of the level and then puts you back in the spot where you need to use the key, saving you the arduous and uneventful trek back through the level you just completed. The issue they run into here is with the wordiness of the dialogue. No sane man is actually invested in the storyline of Luigi's Mansion, so these frequent mission briefing scenes can go on a bit too long for what is essentially a loading screen fast travel. Now, there is an argument to be made that walking back through the level would be shorter than these talking scenes, but the cutscenes come off as a lot less lazy. While maybe there could have been more shortcuts built into the map to solve this issue, I feel as though upgrading our Poltergust justifies these scenes, although they certainly should have been shorter. The issue, more than anything, speaks to how Dark Moon's maps aren't as elegantly designed as 3's floors, because it has something to hide in the first place, whereas 3 had a more simple or condensed level design that didn't need fast travel. On the other hand, I had more fun exploring Dark Moon's world because of how big it was, so either option for level design is great, but I would like it if Luigi's Mansion 4 went with my multiversal mansion idea. I'll be back in 2 days. In the meantime, here's a video about the final boss of Yoshi's Island.